some local news regarding Clenzie Lane and the issues we had on there. And hopefully you will have seen after the meeting we had here, it must have been a couple of months ago now, they did come out and fill the worst ruts, and it is in the programme to come back next summer, which is standard for the retread works, to come and do the kind of top dressing, surface dressing work. So that will level everything off next summer. So that has been confirmed. I don't know if there's any more queries around that, or are we happy with that action plan going forwards? I mean, I've driven that way again tonight and a couple of times recently. I think although it's not perfectly even all the way this side of the bridge, I think the worst of it has been dealt with now and repaired. And
looking at the timeline, you're ahead of plan, aren't you?
What on the?
Well, you've done the bit that you said you were going to do if you had funding, which was in front of.
Yeah, so they did in this financial year the worst section where the chicken farm is, and then this extra bit outside where the alpaca farm is, and they've done the bit over the bridge. So it was always a question mark whether we'd fit that bit in or not this year, but they did do that at the same time. And then you've got that rolling programme for another 2 years. So in 2 years' time, we'll be sat here with the whole section having been resurfaced. So I know it's taking us a long time to get to that point, but that is a significant cost to the council, and hopefully when it's done, that will then solve the issues on there for a number of years.
Chair, can I just? I was thinking of actually raising this with you, and I thought, no, I'll have a chat with you afterwards. If you actually go there now, there are 3 or 4 incidents where the very poor repair that was done is now completely breaking away, and within a short time we'll be reporting potholes on a new road. I'm afraid it is, when you walk it's and if you drive down there now, there's 3 or 4 sections where the bit of tarmac that just dumped on the hole that had been created is now gone. So it is quite an issue actually.
So, I mean, I've driven down there a few times since we had that meeting, and I've not seen, obviously I've not walked along it, I've driven along it, so I've not perhaps seen that level of detail. It didn't look too bad to me. Obviously edge damage is going to happen. So where it's the road edges, that will happen.
It's where it was like rumble strips that have lifted and full of water.
Okay, well, I'll go down again in the daylight at the weekend and take some photos.
It's from the turning, as you turn to go up towards the alpacas.
On that corner?
It's that bit on the left-hand side there.
Right, okay. Okay. And that hasn't been reported at all since? I mean, I've not had... No one's come back to me to say that?
No.
Right, okay.
So I thought, having a meeting tonight, I thought I'd raise it with you.
Right, okay, no, that's fine, but please do send me things in real time, because I can make sure they're dealt with before we get to this point.
Right.
So please do send things to me rather than sit on them for a few weeks. But I'll go myself and have a look at the weekend and take some photos.
Thanks very much.
Because I was told they'd been out, filled them all. I've had a look, so I thought, well, it looks okay. So, okay.
You did fill them all, but probably just as...
But they aren't going to come out and do a big saw cut and level it off, because they're doing the surface dressing next year. So they are not going to come out and start saw cutting it all out, levelling it all off, because they're doing the top dressing next year. So so they won't do that. If the ruts have come out again, they'll just come and temporary fill them again.
Yeah, well, that's what's
because that's the most cost effective thing to, given that next year it's going to have that top dressing that will level it all off.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Right, okay, and then the second thing I wanted to mention was some news that hit the press today. You may have seen the government launched its local government white paper today, which looks at devolving powers down to local government, reorganising local government. It's the new government's sort of mission statement, if you like, for how local services should be run in the country, and there are some very interesting changes proposed in there, and they have essentially invited county council areas, the 21 county council areas in the country have been invited to submit local government restructuring plans to the government in January, and they will make a decision on those in February. And essentially what we're being asked to do is, if we first want to, and if we do want to, what would it look like? Submit proposals for restructuring how local government works within Lincolnshire. So many of you will recall that in May we're going to be voting for a directly elected mayor for Lincolnshire. So we already have agreed a combined mayoral authority, and at the moment that mayor sits above all of the councils, with constituent members from those councils sitting on that authority with the mayor, and the mayor will have powers for public transport, certain highway matters, adult education, and also some housing powers as well. But on top of that, what the government want to do, they want every area in the country in time to have unitary councils. So they effectively want to remove county and district councils, where we have that system, and replace it with unitary authorities. So that would mean getting rid of the county council, getting rid of South Stubton, and replacing it with one authority that deals with everything. So rather than me and Penny being sat here, there'd be one councillor, one council, one person accountable for delivering local services in this area. And on top of that, they want to give parish councils and town councils more responsibilities, and they want to bolster the responsibilities of the mayors as well. So it all dovetails together. The announcement's very fresh, so there's a lot of detail to be worked through. I think it's likely that Lincolnshire County Council will submit a restructuring plan. My personal view is I support that. I think it is confusing for people that we have lots of different councils. We've got chief executives in County Hall, in SKDC, in NKDC, in West Lindsey. I think there are efficiencies to be gained. I think it will allow clearer accountability for public services. You know exactly who is responsible for what. And I think it will reduce bureaucracy and wastage in local government, which, believe me, there is plenty of it. So I'm supportive, actually, of what the government have announced today, and I'm hopeful that we will have some sensible plans to submit in the new year, but that is still subject to discussion and agreement at the County Council. So it's a very, very interesting announcement. It could mean a lot of change. That would mean the government are saying that councils who submit plans and are accepted, they will delay their council elections either until 2026 or 2027, so that you'd be voting for the new authorities rather than electing a new county council in May to then vote a whole new council a year later. So, to me that does seem sensible. But this is all very fresh. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is concrete. But we'll have to watch this space. But I am interested to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think that could look like? What are your concerns or optimisms around that? So throw it out to you guys.
What does that mean to overall numbers?
What do you mean?
Working within the councils.
Well, at the moment we have 10 councils in Greater Lincolnshire. So we've got 7 district councils, a county council, and 2 unitary authorities from the Humber to the Wash. Now, normally the minimum population sizes are around 500,000 people for a unitary council to make sense. So, again, I'm now dwelling in space which is my personal view, not necessarily an agreed position of the council, but my personal view would be you could merge North and North East links, because at the moment they're about 150,000 population each, so they're very small unitary councils, and they probably don't benefit from the efficiencies that you have by having a unitary council. And I would personally, if it was me, I would advocate a Lincolnshire County Council of the county boundary to deliver services in Lincolnshire. I think you enter a tricky space trying to almost use the 7 district councils as jigsaw pieces and match them together. You could have the 2 Stevens together, but then do the Fens really fit with Stamford? And you could then lump Lincoln in. You start getting into a tricky space, and then the 2 Stevens probably wouldn't be 500,000 people, and then do you want an East Coast unitary which would have all of the deprivation and poverty, low skilled work, low council tax base? So you have all of the, dare I say, the needs on the coast and all the affluence in the west, which I think would be problematic if you're running services on the East Coast. So I think they need to be with other areas, because effectively we here supplement the delivery of services for people less fortunate than ourselves on the East Coast. So there's lots of challenges around what it looks like, which is why I think keep it simple, the county of Lincolnshire. We all know the identity. I feel there's no issue with it being this, some people say mega council. I'd like to think you feel at least as close as you can be to county council services. And arguably it depends on the local service you're getting, doesn't it?
Does that mean you're still standing down?
That's a good question. That is a very good question. I'm not thinking about this through my own obviously it creates a problem for me if this happens on a personal level, but I'm not thinking about it through that lens at this point in time. I'm thinking about what do I think is right for public services in Lincolnshire. I think we should have a unitary council. Now the personal difficulty that provides me with is a separate issue, and I'll have to come to a decision on that after we've gone through this process.
When will we have the details?
Well, the white paper's been published today. It's 118 pages. I've managed to read as much of it as I could this afternoon, but there are lots of details in there. And as I said, we know that we're being asked to submit a proposal in the new year, and we know the government will decide on those in February. So we probably wouldn't know any decision until, for a few months now, and that would only be a couple of months away from the current planned county council elections. So it is all up in the air. I mean, I think my personal view, I think Lincolnshire stands a good chance of being accepted because we're one of the new government's flagship devolution deals. So when you read that white paper, we get a lot of mentions in there, along with Hull and East Yorkshire. We're having our regional mayor for Greater Lincolnshire, and it makes sense. Why have 4 years of local government when we could have 3? We could reduce that down. If parishes and towns will say, one council in the middle delivering highways, planning, housing, adult social care, children's services, one council doing all of that, and then a mayor at the top responsible for those bigger strategic things and pulling investment into the county. I think they all dovetail nicely based on that devolution deal we already have in place. And as you know, I was never a fan really of adding a mayor on top of everything else, but now it feels a bit more comfortable.
Seems absolutely imperative for Lincolnshire to embrace this, because it sounds as though that seems to fly directly in the face of everything we've been hearing for the last month or 6 weeks about planning for major infrastructure projects such as renewables and the pylons that are associated with them, and I see Lincolnshire applied for a freedom of information in terms of the actual costs involved, and also in terms of house building. It seems to be Lincolnshire, that was all going to be, well, that's tough, that's going to be decided by the Secretary of State now, because it's much too important to leave in the hands of the county councils. So it seems to me that you need to embrace that to be able to shout to fight your corner in a way.
We have certainly been a target for some of these national infrastructure projects. You mentioned the pylons, you mentioned solar. We have been, and I know that housing allocations have been revised up. So we are a target for these things, and it's important we have that voice, if you like. I think in the past, dare I say candidly, Lincolnshire's always been this awkward place that wants to stick to its 2-tier system. We've got, frankly, there's over 400 councillors in Greater Lincolnshire. There's not a job there for everybody. No disrespect for anybody, but there isn't. One person can represent 8,000 people. We need fewer politicians with the right powers, in my opinion, and that's what the government are saying. So we need to do that in the right way, and it will give us more voice. And I think having the mayor is an important step to having that national voice, because when it comes to these big issues, we've got one person who's been elected by every single person in Greater Lincolnshire who essentially speaks for everyone, rather than at the moment we've got all these different council leaders. Nobody quite knows who to pick up the phone to, and we've had this with highways funding in particular. You'll know that our highways funding was cut by 25%. All of the areas with a mayor had their funding protected. So and that was the previous government. So we know that the government looked favourably on areas with devolution. And my view is if we take this opportunity now, we're at the front of the queue. Any cherries that are on offer, we can take. If we resist and are awkward, as we always have been, and dealt in self-interest rather than the wider benefits, we're going to be back at the queue. We're not going to get any of the benefits. And it's a bit like devolution. The settlement we've got now is a lot worse than it was 15 years ago when we should have done it. Years and years and years ago when we should have done it. So I think we should be at the front of this one and be proactive. And ultimately, I think that will deliver better public services in Lincolnshire that's more accountable to you as the public.
Good selling it.
That's a good idea.
Will that improve contacting you guys then? Because I tried to ring up about something and I just couldn't get through to anybody. It just kept wanting me to go onto the website deal with it and I didn't want to deal with it online.
Well, the thing it will stop is LCC saying that's an SKDC issue, and SKDC saying that's an LCC issue, because we'll be able to say this is the council that delivers all the services, they're the people to go to.
Yeah.
At the moment, we have this problem where everyone's trying to, it's not our responsibility. And that's always been a problem in areas that are two-tier. It's not unique to us in South Kesteven. It's the same in West Lindsey, in the city of Lincoln, absolutely everywhere across the county it's the same.
Well, it was a county council thing, but I tried to ring up and every time it was bumping me to go to the website. Now, I wanted to talk to somebody, and there's got to be thousands of people who want to talk, and all it was doing was just bumping me straight back to this is our website, and I didn't want to do it that way.
There is a customer service number, and if you, I don't know how long ago this was that you tried to call, but you should be able to get through by ringing the customer service. There is a CSC number on the website. I mean, personally, when I phoned it, I've not, it does give you all those automated messages. You can deal with this problem online, yada, yada, yada. The reason we do that is simply because it's cheaper for people to process their complaints online. So we try and put as many people as possible to do it that way. However, if you need to speak to a human being on the telephone, I agree with you, you should be able to do so. And if you hold the line, there should be somebody at the end of the line ready to take your query.
There's a lot of people that... My mum's in home now, but she wouldn't go online and do anything.
No, and that's why it's important we have the telephone number to ring as well as all those online options. Although the online options are far more cost effective for you as taxpayers for us to deal with, say, pothole queries. Everybody used to ring up and report potholes. Now, if you do it on Fix My Street, that's a lot cheaper for a local authority to deal with, though, rather than paying people to sit on the phones all day. But I do absolutely agree you should be able to get through to somebody at the county council and talk to a human being.
I'm just saying, would that improve that side of the service?
Well, I would like to think that whatever the new councils look like, one of the things at the forefront of that is how they connect with the people, given all these concerns around mega councils and services being distant. But I can't guarantee to you that the call centre system will be better. I'm disappointed to hear that you weren't able to get through.
I couldn't get through at all. I was doing it for an hour, a couple of hours maybe, and I couldn't get through.
Well, I can have a chat with you before I go.
I mean, it's done now, and then I had to end up going on the website, and the information they send back is just rubbish. They don't address what you wanted to know in the first place.
Was this on Fix My Street?
No, it's nothing to do with that. No.
Right, okay.
No, it's nothing to do with the roads.
Was it? Right, okay, fine. Okay.
I suppose my only other question on that, with a mega council overseeing it all, how are because there's going to be a finite number of people and a finite number of capacity to focus in on issues, so there's going to be some sort of priority call as stuff comes up. How are local voices, particularly on small areas such as ours, going to still get heard in amongst the whole of Lincolnshire?
Well, I think that's the role of your local councillor, isn't it? To make sure that the person you elect locally puts your area on the radar. That's my job, that's Penny's job. And that's the same problem under the existing system, isn't it? Highways would look no different. Adult social care would look no different. The bits that would change would be the services that are currently delivered at a kind of more local level, at a district level, and bringing them up to a larger area. So there would be a challenge around that. But let's not forget there are a lot of people employed by those 10 councils across Lincolnshire. We probably don't need every single one of them. And there would be a balance to be had, wouldn't there? One of the benefits is the efficiency savings of not having 10 councils, 10 chief executives, 10 monitoring officers, 10 finance directors. We don't need all of them, all on £100,000 plus wages, some of them £200,000, right? So that we don't need all that. But the people you would be keeping are the people delivering the services on the ground. You're still going to need the same number of, waste collection. You're still going to need the same number of planning officers and all that kind of thing. And actually, in the east of the county, areas like planning, they share across 3 councils already because they struggle to get the staff, the resources, the talent that they need. So South Holland, East Lindsey and Boston Borough share those kind of services anyway because they see the efficiencies and the service improvements by sharing those services across all 3 councils already. So the model is there to be taken. We've just got to be brave enough to do it.
Alex, you mentioned parish council powers. What's the likely implication there? Do you know?
Well, there's no detail at all in the white paper about that. There is a reference to improving the voice of town and parish councils and the kind of involvement that you have in local services. I suppose my view on that would be there are certain things that parishes already do county on a voluntary basis, like grass cutting and things like that. There are things that are delivered at a very local level that I think you should be able to choose. How often do you want the grass cutting on the verges? We offer 3 times a year, but if you want it 8 times a year, because that's how you want your village to be, then you should be able to do that, and you should be able to precept for that. So I think we can build on those kind of informal arrangements that we already have at a very local level. I think you guys play an important role in this wider devolution topic, because there's things that a county council, I mean, you go somewhere like Sleaford in Sleaford Town Council absolutely refuse to cut grass. They refuse to cooperate with LCC at all. So Sleaford Town, at certain times of the year, looks a mess if you drive around there, because we cut the grass verges 3 times a year. They refuse to do it. That's county council responsibility the same. Whereas in a lot of the parishes, you guys say, no, we want to do that for our village. We'll take on responsibility. We'll precept. We want our village to be this way. And I think they're the kind of decisions we can give to parishes, and we already do that in Lincolnshire. So I think things like that as an example.
Yeah, Gary, can you cut that 8 times a year?
Well, you say now we get criticised for cutting it 3 times. There's places that want it to be wild, and now that's the big debate.
The point is, I don't think ours ever gets cut. We just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
But that's probably why it doesn't get cut, because when they come in,
There's nothing to cut.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. Then they can move on and do somewhere that isn't quite for community villages.
Yeah. No, it's efficiency for you. That's it. No, that's all I want. I appreciate I've taken up enough of your meeting, but I'm happy to chat to people afterwards.
Perfect, thank you very much. Penny, for the
I do. I'll start at the end, because I was going to just say a tiny bit about this change that's happened today. I knew Alex would know a lot more about it, because it's more a county and a bigger matter, but obviously it's throwing up some interesting unknowns as to the way forward for districts and just what's going to happen. I believe the leader of NK, the leader of SK have all been trying to get on the news this afternoon, to fight their corner. So under the new devolution deal, as Alex alluded to, there are 7 district councils with 4 seats to say anything. So already, unless you're grouping up, you've got less of a say. And so it really all depends, but I think the writing's on the wall. The district councils will go in favour of these bigger councils, and so that's quite interesting. And that leads me sort of sideways around, because I'm going to update you on the NPPF changes, which is the National Planning Policy Framework changes that came out on Thursday, which again has thrown balls in the air, and trying to catch up fast on that. And how will that work, planning in this bigger authority, will be quite an issue as well, because LCC take on certain planning roles, but mainly the districts are the planning authorities, so that would then all have to be somehow amalgamated and things like that. There's a big shortage of planners, so I'm sure they'll all get jobs in the new arrangement, and we'll probably need more. So I'm going to bore you a bit as well with these new changes, but I think it's important everybody understands what's happening, because it is going to lead to quite a bit of change. So these changes in the planning process will put a lot more importance on our local plan. Again, if the districts go, what will happen to our local plan? Nobody knows that at the moment, but at the moment we're carrying on regardless. So already we will need to provide another 25% more allocations for land for housing than we were doing so far in this review. That's going to hold us up a bit because we have to go back through sites, try and find some more sites to add into the plan process. So the local plan now, we're going to get some extra time, is probably not going to be ready till June 26, as things stand at the moment. So all this is delaying. We're trying not to delay, we're pushing forward as best we can. Some councils might give up altogether and start again at some point, but we're continuing as best we can. But it's a lot of change for the policy officers.
That's June 26.
Yeah. I mean, we've still got the local plan we've got, but obviously it's a little bit out of date now, and we do need to move on. The other change will be that once we've got the allocations in the local plan for major housing, that should give them deemed planning consent. So they shouldn't need to come in for an outline application, and that means there'll be less consultation going forward with local residents. So my big advice throughout all this is please get involved with any consultations that come your way on the local plan, because this is probably going to be a big chance to have your say. And also they're going to try and find more government money, because obviously all this housing, we're going to need more public infrastructure. They're also going to give more weight to majority social rent schemes. So already our allocations in our district at the moment, we have to have 30% go to affordable housing, but that is now going to have to go up because they will want more social rent housing, and they're going to differentiate that out to basically council houses. Then there's a need to identify land for what they call modern economy uses. These are land hungry. For example, big data centres that you might have read about popping up around the M25 could come into areas of where there's plenty of land, should we say. They think Lincolnshire's empty, don't they? Because it's all green space. They're very energy hungry and water hungry as well. So there's challenges there. They will all go into these nationally significant infrastructure projects, or NSIPs for short, which means we can say something, but the Secretary of State makes a decision. And I think there's a presumption in favour of a lot of these things, which includes all the renewable and green energy proposals. Most of those will be presumed to be approved. So onshore wind and solar are being promoted, and we could see a lot more of that in our district. And the district now can look at them. We used to look at them up to 50 megawatts, and then they had to go to the Secretary of State. We now can go up to 100 megawatts before they go to the Secretary of State. So that shows you how much bigger they're getting, each one. Extra costs, we're going to have to put up the planning fees. So if you put planning applications in, particularly the big builders will have to pay a lot more for us to assess their applications. There'll be a need for more planners. So the LGA have got something called the Pathways into Planning programme to try and get more people into being a planning officer. And all this, I say, will take time and transitional arrangements. So going back to what Alex has talked about, does that throw everything up into the mix? We really don't know at the moment how it's all going to work. The other thing that's happening is there's going to be a planning reform working paper expected soon about modernising planning committees to support this new plan-led system. We're fairly well on with that. Our constitution means the planning committee only really sees strategic applications. We don't see an awful lot else. We changed that a couple of years ago. So we're fairly well there. And it means that will be more delegation to the officers. But obviously, presumably, we can still call in those applications if we feel that a committee ought to see them for some reason. But I think committees will be phased out. I think, there's less and less we will get a word in on, I think. So there'll be a lot more delegation on that. Again, it comes back to the way we're going to do the local plan. So we have to get the local plan right, so that when planning applications come in, there really isn't contention. You know, we should have on those allocations the requirements that we want to see, so that the builders, developers know what we want. So when it comes in, it's not something we don't want, and then we go into a big circle of arguments over it. So that's going to be a challenge, and get it that way. So please keep your eye on any consultations that come your way, and I know it's a big subject to get involved with, but it'd be interesting. However, having said all that, Stubton should still remain a smaller village, and at the moment there's no land in this particular ward has been put forward for a big housing allocation. But there's always the chance of windfall sites or applications coming forward. And as I mentioned, it's not just housing, there's solar, wind farms, anaerobic digesters, data centres, you name it, on farmland that are really quite large-scale commercial industrial developments. We don't really have the brownfield sites, so it will be on farmland. And that's the big issue, food security versus everything else. On a positive note, we are developing a very good design code. Now, we have been awarded, we're only one of 5 local authorities, been awarded £80,000, this is a big mouthful, by the Office for Place and the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government to create a design code as part of a Design Code Pathfinder project. As you know, we already have quite a good design guidance, but that is guidance. It's not you must do this or that, it's just guidance. Words in the code will be must, should, can. So in other words, much more prescriptive as to what we expect to see. So we're looking for high-level design quality. And that will give clarity to the developers again as to what we expect to see when they submit a planning application. As we often have battles, you know, sort of pattern book houses and all this. So that's a positive thing. And again, there'll be further consultations with that in the new year as to what you'd like to see. So how that relates to your Stubton neighbourhood plan review, of course, is a big issue, because there's all these changes going on. Jake Horton, who's the officer to go to for neighbourhood planning, he's away at the moment. But I'm sure that we need to take all these other issues a bit further forward and work with him as to how you think you could progress, because you need to be working as these policies are working through to see where you want to fit in with your neighbourhood plan with that, rather than wait till the end and then try and do it, because obviously it takes time.
Yes, but
so
are we sensible to do that? Because surely there's lots of changes going on. We'll be saying one thing and then it'll get changed.
Well, I mean, part of your neighbourhood plan would be design, for example. So if you take an interest in what the design code's going to bring out, but that will be a district-wide design code, and they're very keen that neighbourhood plans produce a local one. You know, it can be even more detailed as to what you'd like to see. So say you've got a big development aimed your way, what would you like to see on it? How would you like those houses to be built? What materials would you like? Various things like that. So it's involving now to take it forward, but I would suggest leave all that until the new year and talk to Jake about it.
Did you say there was likely funding from SKBC for this?
I'm not sure on the funding, to be honest with you, at the moment. It's a bit of a seesaw thing whether the funding's available or not, but I think we'll have to leave that until we can talk to Jake in more detail on the back of what's happening with all these other things that are going on at the moment. It's thrown everything quite a bit into slight chaos, I think. So I'm sorry I can't be a bit more helpful in the neighbourhood plan, but the thing is to keep in touch with what's happening with the local plan so that you're working your way through with that. and all the policies that they're developing there. So it's not just housing, there's things like climate change policies you might want to get involved with, and there's a big range. I think I've virtually said enough really. I won't bore you with everything else. I think we can bring that up at another time. So I'll just say Happy Christmas and let's all look forward to a Happy New Year. Any questions? Oh, good.
Finished on the positive.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Penny. So moving on to the parish council element of the meeting. So opening it up, we've had a resignation from the council. Maya has chosen to step down from her position. We have an apology for tonight with Jackie. We do remain a quorum next time. So that's the first point. Second point on here is the correspondence. What was the notes on that? Oh, did you want to update on this because you had the communication?
We had an email from a resident after which I sought advice from LCC and the countryside officer, who confirmed that this was not a PC matter, so no further action. It was actually about a restricted byway and accessibility, but I was told that by Andy Savage that this was not a council issue, so there was no further action on that.
Agenda item number 3 is the conflicts of interest, any disclosures of interest. No. Number 4 is to adopt the draft minutes as a true copy of the previous meeting on the 23rd of September.
I propose,
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Agenda item number 5, Clerk's report on any matters outstanding from the last meeting.
Well, Alex has told a bit about the roads and the meeting went well, but obviously there's been some question about the damage and how good the repairs are, which he has promised to follow up later when you can see it in daylight. Thank you, Alex. And apparently phase 1 is completed and completed on time. So the next section planned originally, let's say phase 2 goes well, 25-26. From the bridge to the end of Quincy Lane, that's phase 2, and then phase 3 will be the Doddington Lane bit, which is 26-27. Penny's mentioned the neighbourhood plan, which from my view I think we've put on hold for a bit, at least till New Year, but then probably further than that, since the local plan isn't going to be finished until June 26 now. So we'll keep our eye on some of those details that Penny mentioned, but maybe keep the rest, ready to consider later on.
Yeah, I certainly think at all with Jake in the new year.
Yeah, biodiversity that we mentioned last time wasn't taken any further, given the restriction to place where we could actually have any bat boxes and things like that. Also applies to the community orchard, which we don't have space on. So that's it. Any things that we followed up from last time. Okay.
Yeah, Jackie, presumably you would have had something on the sign.
On the sign, well, we've had to put that on hold because the funding has completely dried up on that. I have been in touch with a few people And Victoria Herbert did sort of point me to a few things that I followed up, but there was like Jeff said, obviously funding is very important. But we're still keeping our eye on that.
Yes, yeah, she's certainly doing a lot of work on that. Okay, thank you very much. Item number 6 is the finances, items paid since the last meeting and balance carried forwards.
Right, well, we've just had one flag £9.18 purchased, and that was all that we've had from last time. The balance is just £9 less than last time.
Yep. The precept 2025 to 2026 is coming up in January 17th for formal review. Is there anything more we want to discuss on the precept?
Well, I think given that insurance and other costs are going up, and I know we haven't spent much this time, but there could be some costs coming up for updating the neighbourhood plan later on, and because I did check with Penny about funding earlier, and it could be costly if we have to do something on that. So I would suggest that we fill in the review with just a 5% extra, keeping in line with some sort of increase rather than just leaving it as it is. 5% would be £77.50, which isn't a great deal. It's probably very little on the residents' extra to pay, which would mean that the precept would go up to 1617 and 1540, which is a minimal amount, I know, but if we do have to pay for a clerk later, we have to consider that as well.
Yes, we do, and we need to consider the changes coming in with the white paper.
Yes, we
and
do.
what that will then push.
Yeah.
Push down. We won't know before in time for the 17th.
When
the
we
latter part.
fill that in, I haven't put a motion on there, but maybe we could consider that in a further meeting, because it's January the 17th. We can fill in the
So that's what's the due date on that? We're going to need to.
January 17th.
That's the due date.
Review. Yeah, review by then.
Right, we won't be able to do anything planned at present.
Right, so can we introduce a motion now, Sam? To increase by 5%.
Yeah, okay. And that was seconded by yourself, Jenny. Yeah. Okay, item number 8 is an update and progress on President's priority. That's, yeah, I was going to say.
I was going to suggest at that point that we lend financial support to the CATS group. This might still be possible, even if it's an independent group. Do you think?
I think.
I don't know the rules on that.
£5 or something.
Pardon?
I
was thinking of 10% of that. So, but we'll see what happens with CATS following that.
So I think there's some mileage in the possibility.
Yeah, and I think we need to look at the thoughts of how the organisation, the group, as it stands, needs to sit within the parish council in order to unlock what he's going to offer them before we can pass a motion on how we're going to assist with any financing of that group.
Right, so what do you want to do with this motion, Sam?
So I would suggest that we take it, we don't pass this motion on this one, discuss the future organisational structure of the CATS if it needs to fall into the council to get the funding that they need, because we're not going to be able to afford that full £5,000. Well, it's closer to £6,000, wasn't it?
Most of the funding bodies that we would be going to, we would have to go as cats, not the parish councils. Because they can come back to the council. So I think CATS needs to form itself into a more formal organisation.
Yeah.
Become, what was it?
It's akin to an unincorporated association.
Yes, unincorporated, so we need to form ourselves into that.
So I think that restructuring of the CATS needs to take place. We need to understand the funding that they have in place, particularly if...
Then we can decide on that motion, because the council can still support CATS.
Yes, it can,
I think what will probably happen is we get so much, because we're working with Sam as part of council, but we bring so much in and then come back and say, actually we still need this bit.
And I think we need to understand that side of it, what potentially the Dyson Avenue might pull up otherwise available. They wouldn't miss £6,000, would they?
I think it must get that.
And if other people aren't tapped into that fund, then it's their corporate social responsibility.
We will investigate that area then, the Dyson area, that makes sense.
Yeah, and given our very limited funding, that's a very good route, so.
Okay.
Right, agenda item number 9, the village decorations for calendared celebrations.
Right, well I put that on there because actually driving through Claypole when it was Remembrance Day, they had loads of poppies. I'm not sure where our poppies have gone off the Claypole gate. Have you taken them down?
I will tell you where they've gone. Roy took some down.
Roy?
Yes, and I took the others down. Because they're recommended to be taken down no later than 5 days after Remembrance. And of course these have been up for weeks.
Well, they were up at the same time as Claypole.
So, well, Claypole's not here, is it? So it doesn't matter.
No.
So Roy had been and taken them down, and I asked, do you know where the poppies are? And he said, yes. He said, I've got 4 of them in my garage. He said, I'm sick to death, they've been up so long. And he said, they're a disgrace after Remembrance. So I said, okay, well, I'll go along and take the others down for you.
Who do the poppies belong to? Who do the poppies belong to?
The council.
Well, then, presumably they'll be given to you then to keep until next year.
So I was going to propose that we've got some more to put up in the village, and maybe some light, because the lights that are in the village belong to the hub. But it would be nice to, since I put the lights up on the bus shelter and looked at them, they're very pale and they need replacing.
Right.
It's not very expensive to replace some lights. They're actually not got much to them.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Perhaps breaking the structure. That seems very odd, just revisiting the poppies, in that Roy has a poppy on his car all year round. It was odd that he would then go to his place.
Never mind.
Yeah, I won't. That's his personal choice. That's the way he wants to do it.
No, it's Roy. No, he's not told me. I think he must know that, but he must have to. Anyway, it doesn't. But I would propose that we actually put some money aside for purchasing some strong, nicer lights for the Christmas part, and maybe some more poppies. But maybe just one on the bus shelter, rather than just on the gate. Because going through Claypole, it was quite nice seeing all the poppies in the village.
They're one on every
Every post.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope
The speed camera.
I would propose that we purchase decorations for the village.
Yeah, I'd second that, particularly on the bus stop and that area, that looks good when we do
I'll
that.
propose that.
On that subject, so what have we got coming up before the next parish council meeting, which we need to decorate the village, that we have decorations for the village for, other than obviously Christmas? Have we got anything in that time period?
What's that before next?
Yeah.
Not unless you want to put a heart up for Valentine's.
That's an idea. Yeah, just so that we can make sure we get the timings right on when stuff goes up and goes down.
Right, so I propose that. Who's going to say?
So I'd second. Okay, so that brings close the agenda items there. So, agenda item. So the date and time, the next meeting, as previously has been discussed, is 7 o'clock on the 17th of March 2025. So yeah, we're now going to move into a closed session so that we can discuss staffing matter.